Welcome to a demonstration of the administration module for CAD Master's product, CAD Standards Manager. This video will describe how the CAD Manager can easily change and modify the standard in order to deploy the standard company-wide instantaneously. The following videos will describe how to set up layers, line types, symbols, details, sheet borders, text styles, dimension styles, multi-leader styles, and page setups. The first step to populating the standards database is to decide on a layering scheme. How many categories do you wish to have? If using the NCS or National CAD Standards layering scheme or something similar, they use a 5-category system. We will use this scheme in the following example. The administrator must create a discipline with these settings. I'm going to go ahead and create a discipline with up to 5 categories. We're going to go ahead and separate these categories with a dash, and we will name them according to the way NCS does, with the discipline designator, a major category, a minor, what they call a minor 2, and a status. This creates the database so that when we come into the layers, we have up to 5 categories to create these layer names. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and import an XLS in order to populate this. I have some examples for a few different types of groups, and this is what the users are actually going to see. The end user will see these types of layer names. I have to go ahead and remove some of these rows and tell it which discipline I want to actually import it into, the one I just created. It now populates with the proper categories, and you'll see that the groups are named. The way that this works is you have to expose the layers through groups. Whether your company uses an STB or CTB plotting style in AutoCAD, CAD Standards Manager can fill this need. If your company wishes to use both, CAD Standards Manager can also work in this environment. The administrator will import their standard CTB file here. It reads the CTB file with all its line weights, line types, and all whichever colors you're using, including all the screenings. Now, if you want to use the STB file format, you can also do the same thing. When you come into the layers and you go to Assign Layer Properties, you'll notice here for this particular group, doors, there's a color and a line weight. That's the CTB file. If I come here and enable a plot style selection, I can go ahead and import an STB file format. Tell me what my default is, and I can then import which plot style I want. This one I want 60%, this one I want 75%, etc. So I can do both. I can assign a color and a name plot style at the same time. CAD Standards Manager will do both. The CAD Manager can also manually create groups in order to expose to the end user. You'll see here where we have different disciplines. I can go ahead and edit these categories to add my own. I'm going to go ahead and add one. And you'll notice it's adding the abbreviation with its description, and you can actually set up layer property defaults. This will go when you actually create the group. Now what the administrator would do is highlight each one of these categories that they would want to use. You'll see down here I have multiple selection. I'm going to go and grab all these as well as these. I do want to point out that there is a character for a null character and also for a user defined, which means when the user actually creates this layer, it will prompt them for what they want the category to make. This gives the end user a little bit more flexibility. So once I have all these highlighted, I would create the group. I'm going to call this one annotation. Every single combination of each one of these components has now been assigned to the layer. Once the layer group has been created, you come into the Assign Layer Properties, and each one of those combinations of layers are placed in there. Some of these you might not want to actually put in. Maybe I don't want these two because I don't want the asterisk for those. Maybe for the dims I don't want either. Highlight those and remove the layers. So I'm left with this. Then I come through the process, and if I'm using CTB, go ahead and make sure I'm using the right line weight, and you'll see the default color automatically changes based on my CTB file that I had earlier. And then I can come in if I want to use different types of screenings or what have you. For the STB, I will do that. So each layer group, the administrator would come in and change those properties. And this is immediately exposed to the end user. What the user will see now is that when they create layers, based on a plot style table, if you're in the STB, this will not show if you're not doing STB. I'll go by layer group. Let's say I want to grab some of those doors. I'm going to hit OK, and you'll notice that all the plot styles create an update. Those layers are now created with the correct plot style table in them. So we can use both CTB or STB. In addition to creating, updating, and managing your layer groups, CAD Standards Manager also allows for the layer prefixes and suffixes. What this does is you can actually set up a component or a category to go on the beginning or the end, and depending on how you want it to act. For example, let's say I'm going to add a suffix, and I'm going to go and call this one demo. Put a delimiter of a dash, so anytime I add this, it's going to be a demolition layer. And what I would like to do is every single time I add this, I'm going to go ahead and change my plot style so it's going to be screened down to 50%. I'm also going to say a line type override. Instead of that, I'm going to also make it so it's hidden. So now when I add this suffix from the end user side, it automatically changes my plot style and my line type. So to show you, when I go ahead and create a layer on the user side, go to my civil, the one that I just used, go ahead and go to by layer group. I only have one anyway. I'll just grab a few of these, maybe those, hit OK. You'll see down here where there's that demo that I just created. Highlight the demo, go ahead and add the suffix, and you'll notice that the one that's got highlighted adds the hidden to line weight screen color. So you can very quickly change the layer names based on those layer prefixes and or suffixes. This portion of the video will describe how Standards Manager deals with the symbols. What happens is you can actually create groups or subgroups within a particular discipline. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and create a group. I have a bunch of stamps that I would put on a title block that I'm going to place in here. So you'll notice it becomes part of the list. And then you'll see in here I have no blocks, so I would actually come here and add symbols. I have a few that I'm going to add. So this option will actually let you copy the symbol into the directory structure or just reference it from its existing location. I'm going to go ahead and copy it in, and you'll see that I can give it descriptions. So the user will see something that might make it more sense to them. I can place them on layers, and you'll notice I can do this by selecting multiple, and with the right click I can set layer, I can set all these things all at once. I'm going to go ahead and set a layer, and you'll see I'm going to grab an annotation symbol, so it's automatically going to go on that layer. Automatically applies that, so when the user comes in, ready to go. Do I want these scaled? These do not want scaled based on the drawing scale, because they're going to be unit size typically. And if I want to set a no snap, I'm not going to do that either. So what the administrator can do is also say, click on the view palette to see what the actual user is going to see. This is what the user will see before they insert it, and you'll see these pictures, which aren't too great because it's just a bitmap image of the drawing. And so we're going to create an image on the right layer, etc. So I'm going to close that, and you'll notice down here we have a create palette images. I'm going to create these three. It's just warning you to make sure you have a current drawing and active, and it's in a open format. And how do I want to create the images for the selected group? For just my selected, I'm going to go ahead and do it for the whole group. And you'll see behind the scenes, AutoCAD will actually create those images for you. Okay. So now when I come in View Palettes, it looks at the correct color. It even gives you an X for where the insertion point is to give some assistance to that user. Okay. Alright, so same kind of thing. What I'm going to show you is we're going to bring in a new group. I'm going to call this one Utilities. Make sure that I'm in that group, and then I'm going to go ahead and add some symbols again. So you can see the process here. I have some blocks that I'm going to grab. Same story. I can rename the symbol if I wanted to, etc. Give it a description. I'm going to show you the feature that we have for a layer as well. So when we add a layer, so set the layer, we have this utilize layer category wildcard. And I'm going to show you here. I'm going to go and add this, and I'm going to come over here to category 5, and I'll show you why. Okay. So what happens is I'm just going to select multiple status from category 5. What this does, let me show you externally here. Here's my default. It's going to allow the user to pick which layer it goes on. So with this one we have an asterisk at the end, so when the user comes in and actually inserts it, it's going to prompt the user for which layer to place it on. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and create palettes. Same kind of thing for the whole group. After creating my symbols and my create palette images for the standards manager, I noticed that these blocks aren't on the correct layer. There's layers embedded inside of it. So I actually wanted to clean them up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these, and in the admin module you have this fix blocks function that'll let you set everything to layer 0, make it by layer, quite a bit of things, change, converts text styles, dimension styles. I'm going to go ahead and purge, etc. And you can even prompt for new insertion points. So I'm going to do these things. I don't have any text styles or dimension styles I want to deal with, so I'm going to hit OK. And what happens is behind the scenes it goes and opens up each drawing and cleans it up based on the way you wanted it. So if I wanted to at this point, I could recreate the palette images so it might look correct. You'll notice that beforehand you might have noticed a different color. And that way you can very easily clean up your symbols based on these functions. When using the wildcard capability in the insert symbols, what the user is going to see is when they insert a symbol that has that wildcard, I click on this guy, I'm going to go ahead and insert it, and notice that the command line, based on how we set it up in the admin, allows the user to either pick an existing, a new, or the null. So if I set it to existing, and I'll insert it, notice what layer it goes on. See ANOSYM with the E for existing. When I insert a symbol again, but instead of using existing, I'll do new. Insert a symbol again, and this time I'll do null. So it automatically puts the right layer on based on how the admin set it up. So it gives the user to have multiple layers to place this on without having to create multiple blocks. The detail administration is very similar to the symbol administration in our interface. It's based off a discipline and a group. We can now go ahead and add details. So I'm going to go ahead and create a group for retaining walls. Then once I have the group, I can go and add details. Same thing, you're adding drawings. So I have a few retaining wall details I'm going to add in. Same kind of thing, I can add a description or a layer. And of course I want this to go on a particular layer, so I'll go ahead and set that layer to that guy. So when it comes in, it's automatically doing that. So when the user would see, they'll see these guys. Now again, not very pretty. So same kind of deal. I'm going to go ahead and create palette images for the selected group. And again, behind the scenes, it creates those images and captures it for you. So now what the user will see will be this.